"This is pathetic," Varric said. He didn't shout. He didn't have to. His voice was low, smooth, and poisonous. He reached out with his thick fingers and grabbed the top of the stack. The paper was warm from the printer. "You'll never amount to anything here," he added. Then came the sound. It wasn't a clean noise. It was a jagged, tearing sound that seemed to last forever in the quiet room. He ripped it. 23 months of my life, 2 years of missed dinners, canceled dates, and working until my vision blurred. He tore it right down the middle. The pages fluttered down like dead leaves. They hit the dark carpet with a soft thump. 17 people sat around the heavy wood conference slab. Not one of them moved. Not one of them looked at me. They looked at their laps. They looked at their phones. They looked anywhere but at the girl whose career had just been executed in front of them. Varric dropped the halves of my work onto the floor. He dusted his hands, like he had just touched something dirty. "Next item," he said, turning his back to me. I stood there. My hands were empty. My chest felt hollow, like someone had scooped out my lungs with a spoon. I didn't cry. I knew that's what he wanted. He wanted the tears. He wanted the scene. I turned around. I walked out the double glass doors. I didn't run. I just walked. He thought that was the end. He thought he had just thrown away trash. He had no idea he had just handed me the keys to his own destruction. Before we go any further, I want to say a quick thank you for being here and listening to this. It's not easy to relive. If you've ever had a boss who made you question your own value, or someone who took credit for your sweat and tears, please hit that like button. It helps other people find this story. And honestly, it makes me feel a little less alone in telling it. Subscribe if you want to hear how the underdog bites back. Okay, let me tell you who I was before the paper ripped. My name is Marin. I'm not the loudest person in the room. I never was. I'm the person who notices things. I notice when the coffee machine is making a funny noise 3 days before it breaks. I notice when someone smiles but their hands are clenched into fists. I like data. I like systems. I like fixing things that are broken. I joined the company 3 years before the incident. I was fresh out of university, wearing a blazer that cost too much, and carrying a notebook that was too clean. I wanted to change the world. It sounds stupid now, doesn't it? But I did. I thought a big company was a place where good ideas rose to the top, like cream. I didn't know that in this place, cream didn't rise. It got skimmed off and sold by people like Varric. Varric was my manager. The first time I met him, he offered me a peppermint from a crystal bowl on his desk. He had a smile that made you feel like you were the only person in the building. "I see a lot of myself in you, Marin," he had said. "You're hungry. I like hungry." For the first year, it was perfect. He gave me small projects. I crushed them. He praised me in emails. He brought me coffee. Black, 2 sugars. When I stayed late, he told me I was his protégé. I believed him. I would have walked into traffic if he asked me to, because I thought he was teaching me how to cross the street. Then, I started succeeding too much. It started with a scheduling glitch in the logistics department. No one could fix it. Drivers were showing up at the wrong docks. Money was burning. Varric put me on it, probably expecting me to fail so he could bring in a consultant. I fixed it in 4 days. I rewrote the entire routing protocol. I saved the company $400,000 a year. I prepared a report. I gave it to Varric. I waited for the praise. 2 weeks later, during a town hall meeting, the CEO called Varric to the stage. Varric stood there, beaming. He presented the Varric optimization protocol. It was my report, word for word. He hadn't even changed the font. He got a bonus. I got a pat on the back in the hallway. "Team effort, Marin," he said, squeezing my shoulder a little too hard. "We win together." I tried to speak up. I tried to say, "But I wrote that." He looked at me, and the warmth vanished from his face. It was like a light switch clicking off. "You're being paranoid," he said. "You're junior. You don't understand how politics work. I'm protecting you. If you present that, they'll tear you apart." I put my name on it to ensure it got approved. "I did it for you." I felt guilty. I thought maybe he was right. Maybe I was being ungrateful. But then it kept happening. My workspace changed. I used to have a desk near the window. One Monday, I came in, and my box was moved. I was relocated to the lower level. It wasn't technically a basement, but it felt like one. The lights flickered. The heater rattled and blew cold air in the winter. It was where they put the people they wanted to forget. Space consolidation, Varric told me via email. He didn't even say it to my face. The projects got smaller. The praise stopped completely. Now, every time I proposed an idea, he shot it down. Not ready. Too risky. Lacks vision. Then, 3 months later, I'd see another manager presenting my exact idea. I started to shrink. I stopped eating lunch with my friends because I was ashamed. I ate cereal for dinner in my studio apartment, staring at my reflection in the dark window. The woman looking back at me looked tired. She looked small. She still believed things would get better if she just worked harder. So, I worked harder. I stopped proposing small ideas. I started working on the big one. I saw a flaw in our training division. It was bleeding money. New hires were taking 6 months to become productive. I knew I could cut that to 3 months. I spent 2 years gathering data. I interviewed people secretly. I built models. I used my own money to buy software to run simulations. I skipped my best friend's engagement party to finish the data set. I knew this was it. This was undeniable. Even Varric couldn't steal this because it was too complex. He wouldn't be able to explain it. I had to present it. I begged him for a slot in the monthly strategy review. I pestered him for weeks. Finally, he agreed. Fine, he said. Show us what you've got, but don't embarrass me. I walked into that room, with my heart hammering against my ribs. I had printed 20 copies on heavy, expensive paper. I had bound them myself. I started speaking. I felt good. I felt strong. 3 minutes in, Varric held up his hand. Stop, he said. I froze. Is something wrong? Marin, he sighed. He looked around the room, inviting everyone to share his exhaustion. I tried to tell you. I tried to warn you that you weren't ready for this level, but you insisted. The data is sound, I stammered. If you look at page 4, it's derivative, he said. It's amateur. It ignores basic market realities. He didn't look at page 4. He didn't look at a single number. He just reached out and grabbed the stack I had placed in front of him, and he ripped it. This is pathetic. That brings us back to the hallway. I was 20 minutes past the humiliation. I was walking toward the elevator, my badge heavy around my neck. I was calculating how long my savings would last if I quit today. 2 months? Maybe 3 if I ate nothing but rice? Excuse me. The voice came from behind me. I turned. It was 3 of them. The board members. The people who sat at the far end of the heavy table. The ones who signed the checks. The woman in the middle spoke. Her name was Oline. She had gray streaks in her hair and wore a scarf that probably cost more than my car. She had kind eyes, but they were sharp, like a bird's. We saw everything through the glass, Oline said. I felt my face get hot. I apologize for the disruption. I'll pack my things. No, the man on her left said. He was tall, with a face like a crumpled map. That wasn't a disruption. That was unacceptable. Varric is intense, I said. Even then, I was trained to protect him. It was a sickness. Varric is a bully, Oline corrected, and he just destroyed company property. We saw the charts before he tore them. The first page, the summary. She stepped closer. Was that accurate? The 40% reduction in training time? I nodded. Yes, based on a linear regression model of the last 5 years of intake data. Oline looked at the man on her left. They exchanged a tiny nod, a language I didn't speak yet. We can't just fire him, the tall man said, almost to himself. Not someone that senior. Not without cause. The severance package would be a nightmare. HR procedures take months. We know, Oline said. She looked back at me. We are here if you need anything. Thank you, I whispered. I went home. I sat on my floor. I didn't turn on the lights. The next day, I went back to work. I expected Varric to fire me. I expected a cardboard box on my desk. Instead, he was waiting by the elevator. He had 2 cups of coffee. Marin, he beamed. He held out a cup, 2 sugars. Just how you like it. I took the cup. It felt warm. It felt like a lie. About yesterday, he said, lowering his voice. He put a hand on my arm. I was tough on you. I know, but I was just trying to push you, help you develop thicker skin. You understand, right? The world is harsh. I'm the only one who cares enough to be real with you. I see potential in you. Always have. I looked at him. I looked at the smile that didn't reach the rest of his face. I understand, I said. Good. He patted my arm. Back to work. We're a team. I walked to my basement desk. I sat down. I looked at the coffee. I poured it into the trash can. That was the moment Marin the victim died. And Marin the architect was born. I stopped doing my job the way I used to. I still did the work. I did it perfectly. But my mind was elsewhere. I started paying attention. I stopped eating lunch alone. I started eating in the break room with the people nobody noticed. The executive assistants, the IT guys, the cleaning crew. People say knowledge is power, but they think knowledge means quarterly reports. Real knowledge is knowing who is sleeping with whom. Real knowledge is knowing that the VP of Finance is terrified of an audit. Real knowledge is hearing the executive assistant complain that the board of directors is looking for fresh blood and modernization. I bought a small leather journal. I wrote everything down. Varric arrives at 9:15 a.m., leaves at 4 p.m. on Tuesdays, golf. Varric expenses dinners that are clearly personal. The board is worried about stagnation. External consultants are coming next month. I became a ghost. I was pleasant. I was quiet. I smiled when Varric made his jokes. I nodded when he stole my credit again. Great idea, Varric, I'd say. You really nailed that client strategy. He ate it up. His ego was a hungry dog, and I fed it scraps while I sharpened the knife. 3 weeks later, the rumors started. A massive restructuring. The company was bleeding, and the board was bringing in the heavy hitters, consultants, the kind who charge $1,000 an hour to tell you your business is failing. They were interviewing everyone. When I got my invite, Varric stopped by my desk. Just be honest, he said, leaning against the wall. But remember, we're a unit. If I look bad, you look bad. Stick to the script. We're doing great, but we need more budget. Got it? Got it, I said. I walked into the interview room. The consultant was there. It was a woman with glasses on a chain and a suit that looked like armor. And sitting in the corner, taking notes, was Oline, the board member. They asked me about my role. For 3 years, I would have answered with passion. I would have talked about teamwork and values and changing the world. Not today. I opened my notebook. Currently, I said, my voice steady. My division is operating at 60% efficiency. We are wasting approximately 12,000 man-hours annually on redundant reporting. I have tracked the workflow bottlenecks. I slid a single sheet of paper across the surface. This is the solution. It requires a structural shift, moving from a vertical hierarchy to a matrix model. It increases ROI by 22% in the first quarter. I spoke their language. I didn't talk about feelings. I talked about money. I talked about market positioning. I talked about competitive advantage. The consultant stopped writing. She looked at me over her glasses. Where did you learn to think like this? She asked. Here, I said, watching what doesn't work. Oline didn't smile, but she closed her notebook. That was better than a smile. 2 months later, the announcement came. The company was shaking the Etch-a-Sketch. New divisions were being created. Old ones were being merged. Everyone had to reapply for their jobs or apply for new ones. Varric was confident. He laughed in the break room. It's a formality, he told everyone. I've been here 17 years. I play golf with the VP. I'm aiming for the director role. Big raise coming, boys. He took me aside one last time. Don't worry, Marin. I'll put in a good word for you. We'll get you something decent. Maybe a coordinator role. You're good at the details. Thank you, Varric, I said. I appreciate that. I didn't tell him I had applied for the lead of training development. It was the role that would oversee the entire new division. It was a role 2 levels above Varric's current job. It was the role my torn-up presentation had been designed for. You're too junior, the HR rep had whispered when I submitted the application. It's a long shot. I know, I said. Submit it anyway. The interview for the lead position lasted 3 hours. It was a firing squad. 5 senior executives and the head consultant. They grilled me on strategy, on finance, on personnel management. I didn't blink. I had nothing to lose. I answered every question with data. When they asked about leadership style, I didn't give them the fluff. Leadership isn't about being liked, I said, looking at Oline. It's about removing obstacles so people can work. Sometimes the obstacle is a process. Sometimes, I paused. Sometimes it's a person. The room went quiet, the heavy kind of quiet. Then the consultant nodded. The email went out on a Thursday morning at 9 a.m. Subject: organizational announcement. I was sitting at my desk in the basement. I heard the ping. My heart stopped. I clicked it open. I scrolled past the CEO's letter. I scrolled past the VP announcements. And there it was. Head of Training Development and Optimization. Marin, my last name. I stared at it. I refreshed the screen. It was still there. Then I scrolled down further. I looked for the director role Varric had applied for. It went to someone from outside the company, a guy from a competitor. I kept scrolling. Where was Varric? Then I saw it. Senior Manager of Legacy Accounts. Varric, his last name. Legacy Accounts. It sounded fancy. It wasn't. It was the graveyard. It was where they put the old clients that didn't make money anymore. It was a maintenance role. And looking at the new org chart attached to the email, Legacy Accounts reported to Training Development. Varric didn't get the director job. He didn't even keep his old job. He had been moved sideways and down. And he reported to me. I sat in my chair. The basement lights flickered above me. I took a deep breath. I waited. I knew what would happen next. 5 minutes later, I heard heavy footsteps on the stairs. They weren't the slow, confident steps of the man who used to own this place. They were fast, frantic. Varric appeared in the doorway. His face was red. His tie was crooked. He was holding his phone like he wanted to crush it. Is this a joke? He spat. He didn't say hello. He didn't offer me a peppermint. Good morning, Varric, I said. I didn't stand up. I stayed seated. Did you see the announcement? There's been a mistake. He was breathing hard. I just called HR, they said. They said I report to you? That's correct, I said. The new structure consolidates legacy accounts under the development umbrella. It's all about synergy. I used the buzzwords he used to love. You? He laughed. It was a desperate, wet sound. You can't lead a division. You're a kid. You're my assistant. I was your analyst. I corrected him gently. Now, I'm your division head. I won't do it, he said. I'll quit. I'll walk out right now. You could, I said. I opened my leather journal. I flipped to a page. But the new severance policy requires a 3-month handover period for senior managers, or you forfeit your pension vesting for the year. And with the market the way it is, I trailed off. I knew about his mortgage. I knew about the private school tuition for his 3 kids. I knew about the car payments on the Mercedes he couldn't afford. I knew he was trapped. He turned pale. The red drained right out of his face. He looked like a balloon that had been popped. This isn't right, he whispered. We have our first department stand-up on Monday at 8 a.m., I said. Please be on time, Varric. You know I value punctuality. He stood there for a long time. Then he turned around and walked away. He looked smaller than I had ever seen him. I went home that night and I didn't eat cereal. I ordered takeout. I sat by my window. But this wasn't the end. This was just the setup. You see, getting the job was the easy part. Keeping it, and dealing with a man like Varric, who was now trapped in a cage with me, that was the hard part. He wasn't going to go quietly. He was going to try to sabotage me. He was going to try to turn the team against me. He was going to try to prove to the board that they had made a mistake. He thought he knew how to play the game, but he forgot that he was the one who taught me, and I was a very, very good student. The weekend passed in a blur. I bought new clothes, suits, sharp lines, dark colors. I needed to look the part. I needed to look like the person who could fire Varric without blinking. Monday morning came. I walked into the main conference room, the same room with the heavy wood table, the same room where my presentation had been torn to pieces. The team was there, 12 people. Varric was sitting at the far end, arms crossed, staring at the wall. I walked to the head of the table. I placed my leather journal down. Good morning, I said. Varric didn't look at me. Varric, I said. He slowly turned his head. What? We don't say what in these meetings, I said softly. We say, good morning. The room went deadly still. The air was so tight it felt like it could snap. Varric's jaw clenched. I could see a vein pulsing in his temple. He looked at the other people in the room. They were looking at their laps. They knew who was in charge now. Good morning, Varric gritted out. Thank you, I said. Now, let's look at the legacy numbers. I reviewed your files over the weekend, Varric. There seemed to be some discrepancies. I saw the panic flash in his eyes. I wasn't going to scream. I wasn't going to tear papers. I was going to do something much, much worse. I was going to manage him. There are discrepancies in the Q3 projections, I repeated. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't have to. I just tapped the spreadsheet with my pen. It's a rounding error, Varric said. He was sweating now. Not a lot, just a fine sheen on his forehead. The system. It's the legacy system. It's glitchy. The system is fine, Varric, I said. I wrote the patch for it myself 3 months ago. Remember? You signed off on it. He froze. He remembered. He had signed off on it to take the credit. Now, that stolen credit was the rope he was hanging himself with. Fix it by end of day, I said. And Varric? Yeah? Please format it correctly this time. Last week's report was messy. We have standards here. I dismissed the room. Everyone left quickly, like the air in the room was being sucked out. Varric was the last to go. He gathered his papers with shaking hands. That was how the unraveling began. It wasn't a big explosion. It was slow. It was the drip, drip, drip of water on a stone. For the next few weeks, I became the manager he had pretended to be. I checked in on him constantly. I asked him how he was doing. I asked about his kids. I asked if he needed resources. And I watched him suffocate, because he knew it was fake. He knew I didn't care about his kids' soccer games. He knew I was memorizing his answers to use against him later. He knew because he had done the exact same thing to me for 3 years. He was looking in a mirror, and he hated what he saw. He couldn't quit. I knew he couldn't. I had seen his HR file during the transition. He had borrowed heavily against his future bonuses. He had a new house in a zip code he couldn't afford. He had an elderly mother in a facility that cost $6,000 a month. He needed the paycheck, so he had to stay. He had to sit there and let his former assistant approve his vacation days. He had to let me sign off on his expense reports. One Tuesday, I called him in for our one-on-one. He walked in, looking like he hadn't slept in a week. His shirt was wrinkled. The dark circles under his eyes looked like bruises. Sit down, I said. He sat. He kept his hands in his lap, clenching and unclenching them. I brought you something. I pushed a cup across the desk. Coffee, I said. 2 sugars, no cream. He stared at the cup. It was exactly how he used to bring it to me when he wanted to steal an idea. This is awkward, he muttered. Why? I asked. My voice was innocent. It's just coffee. You know why, he snapped. Do I? He looked at me. For a second, the anger flared up. You're enjoying this. I'm trying to manage my team, I said. Speaking of which, I need you to walk me through your current project timelines and the resource needs. He opened his mouth, closed it. He looked like a fish on a dock. You can't be serious, he said. I am. We have work to do. This is a joke, he said, his voice rising. This whole thing is a joke. You're not qualified for this position. I've been here 17 years, and I've been here 3, I said, learning from the best. I smiled. It wasn't my smile. It was his. It was the smile he gave me when he told me I was paranoid. You taught me everything I know about workplace dynamics, I said softly. He stood up. He slammed the door on his way out. The coffee sat on my desk, untouched. I waited until he was gone. Then I stood up, walked to the sink in the corner, and poured it down the drain. I didn't feel happy. I didn't feel sad. I just felt efficient. That was the problem with Varric. He thought this was a battle of emotions. He thought I was angry. I wasn't angry. I was strategic. He started making mistakes on purpose. It started small. He would forget to copy me on an email. He would submit a report an hour late. He was testing the fence, looking for a hole. Then it got worse. He missed a client meeting, a big one. I got a call from the client, a legacy account worth $2 million a year. They were furious. Varric hadn't shown up. I handled it. I smoothed it over. I promised them a discount. Then I called Varric into my office. Where were you? I asked. I forgot, he said. He didn't look sorry. He looked defiant. I had a dental appointment. You didn't put it on the calendar, I said. Oops, he said. He wanted me to yell. He wanted me to fire him. If I fired him, he could be the victim. He could tell everyone I was a vindictive little girl who couldn't handle power. He could sue for wrongful termination. He could collect unemployment. I wasn't going to give him that. I'm worried about you, I said. His smug look faltered. What? You seem distracted, I said. Missing meetings, sloppy errors. It's not like you. Are you okay? Is everything all right at home? I'm fine, he snapped. You don't seem fine, I pressed. Do you need time off? We have wellness days. I can approve a leave of absence if you're struggling with mental health. That broke him. To a man like Varric, pity was worse than hate. Being called incompetent was bad, but being called unstable was a death sentence for his ego. I need you to stop pretending you care, he shouted. I do care, I said calmly. You're struggling. Your team has noticed. Because of you. No, I said. I lowered my voice to a whisper. Because you are realizing what you did to me for 3 years, and now you are experiencing a fraction of it. He went quiet. Except, I continued, I'm not ripping up your work. I'm not insulting you in front of the board. I'm not stealing your ideas. I'm just here, doing my job, professionally, and you can't handle it. He stared at me. You taught me this, I said. How to see people as assets or obstacles. How to smile while calculating. I learned from the best, remember? For a moment, the anger vanished from his face. It was replaced by something else. Recognition. He looked at me and saw himself, and he was terrified. I didn't mean, he started. Yes, you did. I cut him off. That's the part that matters. You meant all of it. He left early that day, and the next, and the next. I approved his timesheets without question. I didn't dock his pay. I didn't write him up. I just let him sit in the discomfort of his own making. Then came the performance reviews. This was the moment he was waiting for. He expected me to tank him. He expected a 0% raise. He was ready to take that review to HR and claim bias. I sat him down. I slid the paper across the desk. He picked it up, bracing himself for the blow. He read it. His eyebrows shot up. A raise? He asked. A cost of living adjustment, I said. 3%, and a meets expectations rating. He looked at me, confused. But I missed the meeting. The reports were late. I know, I said, but I know you're going through a transition. I advocated for you with the board. I told them you just needed time to adjust to the new hierarchy. He dropped the paper. Why? He whispered. Because I'm fair, I said. And because I want you to stay. That was the cruelty. That was the revenge. If I had punished him, he would have felt justified in hating me. But by rewarding him, I took away his anger. I left him with nothing but his own shame. I made him realize that I was better at this job than he had ever been. I was better at being a person than he was. He couldn't demonize me. He could only envy me. And that is a much heavier weight to carry. 2 weeks later, the request came through. Subject: resignation. Varric. It wasn't a dramatic exit. He didn't storm out. He didn't make a speech. He just sent an email. He gave 2 weeks' notice. I accepted it immediately. I wrote him a reference letter. It was glowing. It was professional. It was factual. It said he was a seasoned manager with deep institutional knowledge. I handed it to him on his last day. Good luck, Varric, I said. He took the letter. He looked at me one last time. He looked tired. He looked old. You won, he said. It wasn't a game, I said. Wasn't it? He asked. He walked out. When the elevator doors closed, I didn't cheer. I didn't pop champagne. I went back to my desk. I opened my leather journal. I drew a line through his name. Varric, done. His replacement started the next month. A woman named Sarah. She was young. She was hungry. She reminded me of myself 3 years ago. The division flourished. Under my leadership, we cut training time by 40%. Exactly like my torn-up presentation had predicted. The board was thrilled. We saved the company millions. I got invited to the strategy retreats. I sat at the big wood table. I drank the expensive coffee. Oline, the board member with the kind eyes, took me under her wing. You're a natural, she told me one day after a meeting. You have a killer instinct, Marin, but you keep it hidden under velvet. That's a rare gift. I smiled. Thank you. The consultant sent me an email. You've become exactly what this company needs. I read that email 3 times. I printed it out. I put it in my drawer. I couldn't decide if it was a compliment or an accusation, because here is the secret I never told anyone. The secret that keeps me up at night in my nice apartment with the view of the city lights. I didn't save Varric that day in the board meeting because I wanted to be fair. I saved him because I wanted to own him. When the board saw his file, they wanted to fire him. He's dead weight, the tall man had said. Cut him loose. I was the one who said no. I told them I needed his legacy knowledge. I lied. I didn't need anything from him. I kept him because I wanted him to report to me. I wanted him to wake up every morning and know that his paycheck depended on the girl he used to bully. I wanted to watch him squirm. I told myself it was justice. But was it? Or was it just Varric? Was I just Varric with a better vocabulary? 1 year later, I was at a coffee shop downtown. It was a Tuesday. I should have been at work, but I was networking. That's what we call it when we don't want to be in the office. I saw him. Varric. He was sitting near the window. He was wearing a t-shirt and jeans. He looked different. He looked healthy. The dark circles were gone. He had lost weight. He was laughing at something on his phone. I almost walked away, but he looked up. He saw me. He didn't run. He waved. I walked over. Hello, Varric. Marin, he said. He stood up. He offered me a hand. His grip was firm. You look expensive. I am, I joked. How are you? Good, he said. Really good. I'm working at a nonprofit now. Housing assistance. The pay is terrible, he laughed. But I sleep at night. That's good, I said. I started therapy, he said suddenly. I blinked. Oh, my therapist talks about scarcity mindset, he said. She says I was drowning, and I pulled you under because it made me feel like I was swimming. He looked me in the eye. I'm sorry, Marin, for everything. It wasn't the apology I had fantasized about. I used to imagine him on his knees, begging. This was simple. It was real. I appreciate that, I said. And I meant it. We talked for a few more minutes. Then he checked his watch. I have to go. My daughter has a recital. He picked up his bag. He looked light, unburdened. I watched him walk away. He blended into the crowd. He was just a guy who had made mistakes, paid for them, and moved on. I walked back to my car. I caught my reflection in a storefront window. I saw the expensive suit, the confident posture, the phone in my hand, already buzzing with emails I needed to answer. He looked lighter. I looked successful. There is a difference. I drove back to the office. I walked past the security guard who knew my name. I took the elevator to the top floor. I sat at my desk. I opened the bottom drawer. There, in the back, under a stack of files, were 2 pieces of paper. The presentation. I had taped them back together the night I got the promotion. A jagged line ran right through the middle. A scar. I read the words. Proposal for human-centric training modules. Objective. To empower employees and reduce anxiety. The girl who wrote this cared about people. She believed that work could be about more than winning. She wanted to help. I tried to remember what that felt like. To just want to help. I couldn't. I looked at the latest report on my screen. Q4 efficiency targets. Headcount reduction strategy. ROI. I was good at this job. Maybe even great. Just then, there was a knock on my door. It was Sarah, the new hire. My protege. Do you have a minute? She asked. Her eyes were shining. She was holding a folder. I have this idea. It's a totally new way to handle onboarding. It's kind of radical. She reminded me so much of myself it made my chest ache. Come in, I said. She laid the folder on my desk. She started talking. She talked about feelings and value and culture. I looked at her, and for a split second, my brain didn't hear her words. My brain calculated the cost, the time, the risk, the ROI. My brain said, this is fluffy. This won't scale. This is a waste of time. I almost said it. I almost said, Sarah, you're not ready. Focus on the metrics. But then I looked at the taped-up paper in my open drawer. I saw the tear. I looked back at Sarah. It sounds expensive, I said. Her face fell. The light started to go out in her eyes. But, I added quickly, it sounds right. She blinked. Really? Yes, I said. Let's do it. I'll approve the budget. She beamed. Thank you. You won't regret this. She practically skipped out of the office. I sat there in the quiet room. I had broken the cycle. Just once. Just for her. But as I closed the drawer and hid the taped paper away again, I wondered if Varric had started out like Sarah. I wondered if someone had crushed him once, and he had spent the rest of his life crushing others, to feel safe. I wondered if I was already too late to be saved. I won. Varric lost. But late at night, when I'm eating takeout alone because I'm too busy for friendships, I catch my reflection in the darkened window, and the face looking back knows exactly what it cost to get here. She doesn't believe things will get better anymore. She just believes in winning. And I can't remember when I started thinking of her as someone else. Thank you so much for listening to my story. If you've ever had to fight to be seen, or if you've ever won a battle only to realize the war changed you, let me know in the comments. It's a weird feeling, isn't it? Success is lonely. Don't forget to like and subscribe. It really does help. Stay strong out there, and don't let the Varrics of the world turn you into them. See you next time.